Welcome to an episode of War Hero Superhero. Hope you liked that intro. That was awesome, wasn't it? So I am your host, Daniel Faust. We help military, veterans, and first responders transform their lives from the bedroom to the boardroom. But today we are in the Superhero Battle Room, and we go over and bring in guests that are military veterans and first responders or honorary heroes that have transformed their lives from war hero to superhero. And today I got Joshua with us. He was in the service and transformed his life, and now he's transforming lives in the disaster area of FEMA and whatnot, and loves to tell his stories, support veterans, and go over and help people go over and just thrive. So we brought him in, and he's got the most epic beard ever. So veterans, you're going to have to go over and glean off that, because I will never get a beard, but he will be your beard man. So we will bring him in and tell his story. So we're going to bring Josh in. Hey, Josh, thanks for joining.
It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. So thank you for going over and joining, and in beautiful Arkansas, and you got the outside view. Things a little better than the battle room. So speaking of my battle room and your battle room, let's talk about your war hero story, how long you were in service and how did you serve, and what'd you go over and do for us in this fine DoD world?
Well, I come from a long family of military service. Our family came to this country in 1775. And since then, pretty much every generation has served either military or government. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to go ahead and do my family duty, serve our country. I was on the bus to basic training when the Twin Towers were hit.
Wow.
So that was a wake-up call. Did basic at Fort Benning, Georgia, up on Sand Hill. So as you can imagine, all of our drill sergeants, for the most part, were Airborne Infantry Rangers. So it was intense. It was definitely intense. But I went in specifically as a heavy equipment operator. Anything big and bad to the bone that could smash a house, pretty much I was certified on.
Wow.
And primary duty was to create I forget the technical term for them, but we created long trenches for the M1 Abrams to drop down into, and then they would pop up with just the turrets above the ground and fire, then fall back. Wow. So that was our primary duty, but everything moved so fast, we never really got a chance to do much of that.
So how long were you in the service for? Were you in just for the 9/11 time frame when war was hot, or did you stay in longer?
I was in from 9/11 through spring of 2004.
Man, that must have been a pretty intense time. So you must have went down into combat because you just came in 9/11, because I know they expedited Air Force and all the rest of the branches during that time. Yes. For me, I was already in, but yeah, my 9/11 was different than your 9/11. So did you have to expedite down to the Afghanistan, Iraq area, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we went into through Kuwait. And then up into Iraq there in the early part of 2003.
Wow.
And, I think I ended up being in country maybe 3 or 4, probably 4 months, and then got injured. And it was a training exercise accident, actually. So it avoided every scratch and everything you could imagine in actual combat scenarios. But then the old joke, you're the reason for the safety briefing. Yeah. We had a training exercise it was, I guess you could have considered it a hot zone, but we weren't taking fire by any means. We were just I was training some 12 Bravos and how to speed load heavy equipment, and ended up taking a fall. I got injured, flown back to Longstuhl in Germany, and they determined that they wanted to take me back to Fort Hood, Texas. And attempt to repair everything there. It was primarily my right shoulder that blown out of socket at impact. So it was 9 months in physical rehab at Fort Hood, and they determined I couldn't do that particular job anymore. So they offered me a job, and I was young and immature, and I declined to do this job.
Yeah, I think most of us do when we're in the frag of a job, and it's like really Army or really Air Force or really Marine or even really Space Force now. If we ain't in the aircraft flying to the moon, we don't want to do it. So yeah, I could see that point of view. So you decided to go over and get out. How was it in 2004? Because the economy was sort of good then, but what was it for you? Was it easy? Was it difficult?
Transitioning back to civilian life,
Mm-hmm.
it was very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was met with a lot of resistance entering back into the civilian sector. Got a lot of, well, you're overqualified. We
Mm-hmm.
can't hire you. Well, your military experience doesn't count to the real world.
Mm-hmm.
A whole lot of that, and I had some PTSD related issues, so I struggled
Mm-hmm.
with drinking pretty heavily for about 2.5 years coming out of service, and I finally reached a point where I knew I needed help, and so I entered the veteran the VA program and their counseling programs, and it was really feeling. I felt lost, kind of like without a mission.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, other than I knew I had grew up in a musical family, so I thought I would give my hand at trying out the music scene, being in the music
Mm-hmm.
industry. So ended up getting into music and played with several different bands, and then ended up being just a hired gun,
Mm-hmm.
uh, just vocals and guitar and keyboards. And I got to tour with some. I got to support some big bands on tour, but it was still a real struggle even then. And I finally decided to get a little more serious about life. So in 2010, started going to college for emergency
Wow.
management.
That's a crazy turn of events from like recovery, drinking, and then going into the music world, which then can encourage drinking and drugs and everything else. And
They
then
do.
you jump into emergency management, so that could cause drugs because you're always in chaos. So, man, because I worked in it briefly, I almost got certified as a claims adjuster, but then stopped because I didn't have enough money to get all the rest of the certs. So was that FEMA? Was that your transformation time from war hero to superhero? Is that when you started to really turn your life around? Is when you got into the FEMA world?
Yes. Yeah. It was during the time period of my college days, from about 2010 to 2017,
Mm,
2018. It was very much honing in, learning to hone in on what I wanted,
mm,
and going all the way back to uh, combat scenarios where crap hit the fan, and oftentimes communication was the first thing to go out the window in
mhm.
scenarios like that. And I knew that if I wanted to make a real impact, I needed to look at the places where there was chaos.
Mhm.
And then delving further into emergency management, I realized that we, on the civilian sector, lose billions every year to natural disasters. So I
Mhm.
thought, well, studying emergency management, if I could become the authority in something, I would want to be the authority in preventing, or not preventing, but lowering the impact of natural disasters. I mean, we can't necessarily prevent natural disasters. Mother Nature is going to throw at us what she wants. There's not a whole lot we
Yeah.
can do about that. But I finally came up with the concept of becoming, or doing everything I could to become, a leading expert in the field of disaster mitigation. And mitigation is just a fancy word for lowering the impact of natural disasters.
Yeah. That is really intriguing. So that's how the transformation story comes over. So you basically just took your combat experience and now you're combating natural disasters and you're just taking that experience and transforming that. And that's fantastic. So,
Absolutely.
and what got you involved in the veteran scene? Because that was really interesting. I started seeing you in the past couple of years in the veteran scene and the vetpreneur groups and everything else. What made you then start giving back to the veterans? Because our service is enough. We don't have to go over and do that. And what made you decide to then jump into there? Because it's already hard enough with PTSD, transformation out, and everything else in nature. But now you're helping with veterans and their businesses and their stories. So what made you jump into that?
Well, the another thing that I discovered in the civilian sector is that the camaraderie, the
Mm-hmm.
brotherhood that we had in the military does not exist outside the military. It
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't. there is a closeness, there's a bond within the military brothers and sisters that you just can't find in the civilian sector. And Simon Sinek actually has a lot of good talks on that particular subject. He wrote a book, Leaders Eat Last, and he covers that subject pretty heavily. If anybody ever wants to dig into that, but I saw that bond didn't exist, the camaraderie didn't exist in the civilian world. So I said, you know what? I know where I can find that. So I turned back to my veteran community, and I just, it's something that I want to do, is be an advocate for veterans everywhere. And not long ago, I had the honor of meeting Michael Brooks, who's the founder of We Are the 22, incredible organization that helps veterans struggling with PTSD, especially on the suicidal end of things. His organization does more than any organization I've ever seen for someone struggling with PTSD related suicide thoughts. And so I've reached out to him about helping their organization, and then of course with the Vetpreneur Tribe and some of our other groups, Combat Coffee and so on, and just anything I can do to inspire my fellow veterans, my fellow brothers and sisters, to let them know that, yeah, PTSD exists and it sucks, but we can push through. We absolutely can. It's possible. I'm living proof, and I know a lot of other veterans who are as well. So that's what I want to do. I want to be able to be a net positive in the lives of other veterans.
That's an interesting concept, a net positive. Yeah, because I don't think of a net negative, but that's interesting that you're depositing in there. And that's a great thing, because we kind of feel as veterans, like when we go to the VA or go to all these other places, we feel like we're withdrawing on a constant basis. So that's a really cool concept to go over and bring up. So last and certainly not least, for every war hero to superhero story we talk about is 3 superhero tactics. So if you can either put yourself back in 2004 when you got out, or tactics that you share with other veterans, what either helped you would have thrived if you would have met yourself. It's a little weird concept. Or if you're helping other veterans, because sometimes you imagine yourself like, ooh, I can't tell myself about the future, but you can in this world. So what superhero tactics you either would have gave yourself or you give to others as you're helping them out?
Well, for one, persistence. Never give up. Persistence is vital. Persistence is key. Persistence will win above skill, above talent, above everything else. If you persist, you will win in the end. Also, transparency with each other. When you are in community, when you're in relationships, whether they're intimate or community or veteran, no matter what it is, intimacy, even on just a friendship level, requires transparency. And so we have to be willing to be transparent with each other and be real. And it does call for being vulnerable, which is a challenge. And sometimes you do have to be cautious of who you're vulnerable around, because there are those that do seek to bring us down. But to be vulnerable with those that you know you can trust, that transparency is essential. It really is. And the other thing is a willingness to own your mistakes and own your successes. Willingness to look in the mirror and address the person that you see there, because ultimately, as we all know, whether we win or we fail, we have to take responsibility for that. And so we have to be willing to look into the eyes of the man in the mirror and delve deep in there. Dr. Jordan Peterson has a saying, and it's not his saying. I think it's a very old saying, but you don't get the gold without the dragon. And the dragon is that inner man in here that you're going to have to fight to cut down those things that you don't need in your life. So those are the 3 things that I would recommend.
That is an old comment. I was like, I don't know that one. I'm like, yeah. But it's still very powerful to stay the same. So I want to thank you for everybody that's going over and watching War Hero to Superhero and going over and honoring Joshua is one of our War Hero superheroes. One of the great honors that we get to go over and do now is with Legacy Media, we get to resurrect War Hero to Superhero back to the digital television. And with that, every veteran that comes on War Hero to Superhero during this week gets an opportunity to get uplifted to the television show. Carrie's going to be our first episode that's going to get uplifted back up because she won last month. I need to get back over. So Carrie, you won. I'm going to get back with you in the DM in a bit. But this week we have at least 2 veterans coming on. We have Josh and we also have Todd. He'll be on Thursday. I might have somebody on Wednesday, but the way Josh or Todd or anybody wins is by going over and uplifting this message. So if you're watching this right now, all you have to do is to give Josh a view is 3 seconds. That's it. I know we only have attention span of 1.75 seconds nowadays for scrolling or, hey, I'm reading the show, because I get a lot of people tell me they watch it, but they're not opening it because of the auto caption. But if you want Josh to go get uplifted, it has to be 3 seconds in the next 3 days. So if you can give him 3 seconds by actually clicking on the video, take your index finger, take your fancy pen, take your stylus if you're really old school, whatever you want to go and do, or if you're at the computer, the handy dandy mouse, it can be wireless or not, doesn't matter. You got to click and open the window. That's how a view is aggregated on Facebook. I know. I've had lots of people, I watch you. I'm like, I never see you because you never click the window. So if you want to give Josh a view, it's 3 seconds of opening the window in the next 3 days. If he gets the most views, then he'll be uplifted to the television show War Hero Superhero, which will be powered by Legacy Media. And now we are in 15 different locations. So if you're trying to get your message out there too, please go send me a DM, because I would love to have a conversation with you to get your message out there. Veteran, military, first responder. And even if you have a civilian message, if it's about positivity, legacy, integrity, global community, let's talk. But right now, focusing on Josh, 3 seconds in the next 3 days, and it's Josh's job to share, because we don't want to be biased. So if Josh wins, it's because his thumb was on the phone clicking it more than me. So Josh, you got the floor one last time before we close out. Any parting shots before we close out this episode?
I just want to encourage everyone watching, of course, my veteran brothers and sisters, no matter what comes your way, you can rise above it. You can push through it. It does take community. It takes togetherness. We were not meant to battle it all on our own. So let's pull together and we can overcome anything.
And with that, there is no other words to say than have a great day, and we'll see you another time in another episode. All right.